the golden handcuffs of health insurance. We cannot get access to good enough benefits if we're an independent household. Somebody has to have a job at an employer that has subsidized healthcare, because in the independent marketplace, we're out of pocket $80,000 a year.
Welcome to Holy Fractional, the podcast dedicated to elevating the role and success of fractional workers everywhere. Fractionalism is changing the world of work, and we at Holy Fractional are here to help guide you through this exciting new frontier. So whether you're a seasoned fractional pro, a beginner in your journey, or just curious about what it all means, this podcast will be packed with real stories, expert advice, and unfiltered truths about what it is to thrive in a fractional world. In each episode, we'll be having candid conversations with experts from within and beyond the fractional space. Together, we'll tackle questions like, what exactly is a fractional employee? Why and how is it exploding across the workforce? What can you as a fractional do to set up your business for success? And how do you do it without traditional full-time benefits? No fluff, no corporate jargon, just the tips, shortcuts, and real-world insights you need to become the best version of your fractional self. And most importantly, we want to have some fun along the way. Holy Fractional, your fractional future starts here, and it starts now. Welcome to the Holy Fractional Podcast, everyone. I'm Andrew Graft here with my amazing co-host and ambassador of Quan, Todd Hines. Todd, say hello to the people.
Hi, everyone.
Today on Holy Fractional, we will be meeting with a very important person in the world of fractionalism, Mark Jackson of the rapidly growing solopreneur solution, Besolo. Hello, Mark. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you.
We're going to be talking about an issue here that's pretty near and dear in the hearts of fractional workers, and that's how to manage one's business at the same time you're trying to build it.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to be talking about a bunch of things. We're going to be talking about health benefits, retirement savings, and if you're lucky, we may even delve into the sexy and racy side of taxes and accounting. So if you behave, you're going to hear it all. So Mark, again, welcome. We're just so glad to have you here.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me here. I really appreciate it. And fractional work is extremely near and dear to my heart. I was fractional or freelance for over 10 years. My dad was, well, I guess you'd call it self-employed. He owned like a excavation business of one for my whole life. And I think I always look at it and go, why is this so hard? It shouldn't be this hard. It shouldn't be this much compromise. Because at this point, almost half the country in some way, shape, or form is independent. So let's make it easier, you know?
And I'd be curious, when you've hinted at it, but what was sort of your background before founding Besolo?
Messy, but a lot of freelance, a lot of independent, a lot of fractional. Right after college, went into the film industry that was mostly freelance and independent in that space. A director's assistant for the director of Twilight, actually, and got to work on the movie Red Riding Hood with her. And then went into the writer, producer, kind of art department side of things. And that whole world, also very similar problem sets to fractionals, right? And then got brought into tech and startups and loved the impact that you could have with technology to solve real world problems.
Clearly, you had the background to sort of lead into this. You really had to jump in with both feet. What inspired you to start Besolo?
The thing is, I keep thinking about that and I get asked that question a lot. And I think it's find the problem you hate the most and are closest to solving. That's probably a good guiding light for a startup. So for me, my wife is a kidney transplant patient, and I would probably rather be fractional. I love the fractional lifestyle. I love being a consultant. I love working with tons of different companies. And for us, we cannot get access to good enough benefits in the state we live in if we're an independent household. Somebody has to have a job at an employer that has subsidized healthcare, because in the independent marketplace, we're out of pocket about $80,000 a year with her medication. And that's just like a non-starter. And so I hated that. I hated that eventually we would have to compromise as a household. And I had this past experience with this company called Velocity Global, which is a big tech startup in the PEO space. And PEO is just, hey, let's put a bunch of employees from a bunch of different companies under one roof. And now we can give all of those employees that company's benefits package. And I was like, why hasn't anybody used PEO to solve this really nasty benefits problem that millions of people in this country face?
And for those who may not know, what does PEO stand for? Or if you don't know, I do.
Yeah, it stands for Professional Employer Organization. So it basically means this company's sole purpose is to be contracted as an employer for other companies' employees, entering what is called a co-employment relationship. And now all those employees from all those different companies can get one nice benefits package and get the benefits of economies of scale and negotiation at scale. So originally this all started as, how can I fix this incredibly nasty benefits access challenge that my household individually faces and limits us and limits millions of other households? But then we realized in order to do that, we actually had to build out the whole platform that supports the operational side as well. And so now we're like, I guess we just have the business of one solopreneurial platform. All right, let's go.
And we're going to get right into that. I mean, here shortly, because it's kind of interesting. I know I came upon Besolo enjoying, when I started this journey because of the same reason. Now, I'm fortunate. My wife does work full time and I do have full-time benefits through her work. But one of the challenges of doing this kind of work is, that way our healthcare system works, to your point, you have to be employed full-time somewhere to have the kind of benefits that you feel like you need to as a family. I mean, even the stuff that's available on the public market is pretty expensive. So those little things had crossed my mind as well. I mean, I long ago in my career, I was part of a PEO. So I knew what you were talking about, but this is a group of individual companies come together to do this. So it's one of the reasons I love the Besolo model. Is personally, I get it. I love it. I know where you guys are coming from.
We have a particular name for that situation, the golden handcuffs of health insurance. It is so common in this country. There's this weird, funny saying that we keep running into talking to lots of different businesses of one, or even founders of small companies, which is behind every founder of business of one, there's a spouse with healthcare. And that is crazy, right?
Oh my gosh. That is so stinking true. Right. I absolutely get that. I just gave you your point.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Crazy to hear how prevalent it is.
Yeah.
And today, roughly 50 to 60% of all independents do get their healthcare from spouses. My rough estimation, talking to hundreds upon hundreds of people, is I would guess 50% of those people would like other options. 50% of those people, maybe the spouse wants to be independent too. And there's this fundamental failure in this country around this benefits challenge that limits household and family optionality.
Before we dive into some of those benefits, because it's not just healthcare benefit, there's a lot that comes with your platform. I feel like we're seeing more people ditch the corporate life in favor of working for themselves. I assume you feel the same way. And if so, what do you think's driving the trend?
If you look at the spike started in 2020. It's definitely correlated to COVID. And maybe it started as the COVID layoffs piece, or maybe it was a realization of, oh my God, we're facing a pandemic as a society. Life's too short. I want my life design. From 2020 to 2024, full-time independence has doubled. And it was a pretty flat, moderate line before that. So we're roughly around 30 million full-time independents in the States. And since then, too, part-time and occasional independence is up to like 40% of the entire workforce, with a clear line of sight of being 50%. And you're like, oh man, that's a terrifying number if people are doing that against their will. But if you look at the data says that 70-ish% of people are doing it by choice. So you look at that and you go, okay, to me, this is about a dream of having control over your life design. And maybe that's where I personally lean towards. Looking down the barrel of a pandemic made people realize life was too short. And I want to be my own boss. I want to work for who I want to work for, how I want to work, when I want to work. And I want to spend time with my family. So yeah, it's pretty crazy to see that trend, and then also layer on top of it that the vast majority are still doing it by choice. Now, I don't know what the future holds. I think AI is going to play a huge part in potentially making that by choice number.
For whatever it's worth, Mark, I've talked to a ton of people in this space. I have to count myself among one of the people who made a decision to go this route. because of aging parent obligations that I have. I'm in Generation X. My parents are in their 80s, starting to have health issues. And for me, this was absolutely a lifestyle choice to have control over my time, over my destiny. But there's absolutely, to your point, a completely different segment for whom they have had this foisted upon them. And it's due to something that I have called hating on headcount. There seems to be a new movement that started in the realm of venture capitalism and startups, where full-time employees have been increasingly seen as not the asset they once were, but instead as a liability. And consequently, companies are starting to look at ways to enhance the flexibility of their workforce and being able to add and reduce staff at will, and think that they can overlay AI to support what they feel like they might be losing by having people on staff. And so, again, this is all in flux, but I can also tell you there is a story of people saying, whether I want to or not, whether I like it or not, this is a new reality that I need to start getting good with.
It's one of the things that, as founders of Besolo, my co-founder, Jeff Taggart, and I, we look at and go, I'm saddened by the fact that our growth might be driven by involuntary choice, but I'm honored and proud that we have an option that I would have loved to have when I was fractional. I guess I'm proud and honored to be in the position to try to catch some of those people that are forced into this lifestyle and take away some of their pain.
When I found you and this is what you do, I thought this is the solution that so many people are looking for. And I know it's in evolution, and I know you're continuing to improve the product, but just the whole concept of there's somewhere people can go, self-employed solopreneurs, to not have to feel that nearly the level of anxiety and stress associated with, I'm not a full-time employee anywhere.
Right. Yeah. It's insane that it's this way, but people they don't intentionally want to be non-compliant. The vast majority are not like, I don't want to pay my taxes. They're like, I want to pay the right amount of taxes, but you don't know what the right amount is. It really is this jungle. My kind of vision of this is you have to pass through this jungle to get to the promised land, the utopian version of business of one. And at Besolo, we're trying to just make a bridge over the jungle.
You bring up an interesting point, because you had mentioned about compliance and things like that. At a higher level, I think a lot of solopreneurs underestimate the business side of being independent. From your experience, outside of, say, benefits not being covered, what is sort of the biggest surprise for people when they leave traditional unemployment relative to the business side of being self-employed?
I think it revolves around access. How do I get access to certain things that I had at the W-2 employment? There's always this replacement desire. I want to figure out how to get my same benefits package, my same retirements package. And the answer is always on that one. It's you can get similar, comparable, but they're going to be different. I'm struggling to say favorite, but I speak from personal experience on this. The one that's potentially most painful, that is also the silliest because it's so easy to manage, is quarterly estimated taxes. That is one of the biggest mind shifts for people. Yeah, everybody told me that being independent, you could write off a lot more. You just pay less in taxes because you're writing off more. But they completely miss the ball on quarterly estimated taxes and then get to April and they're like, by the way, you own $25,000. And I did that year 3 or 4, but not because I wasn't paying them, because my accountant had given me quarterly estimated vouchers that were just a quarter of the tax paid from the year before. And then I did much better the next year. And I didn't increase my quarterly estimated tax vouchers. And I was like, oh, I'm doing great. I've been paying my taxes, doing what my accountant says. And I got to April and had to write a $30,000 check. And I was like, oh, that really stings.
I can feel sitting here in my chair behind my microphone, the collective tension and pucker amongst our listeners as you're talking about tax obligations and quarterly, and wait, I thought I did this one time per year and it's already hard enough. I would imagine a lot of them run to you grateful that they have someone who knows about this stuff.
I've worked in so many different independent roles and jobs and been around so many different types of independence across multiple industries. One of the big realizations we had was that it doesn't matter whether you're an influencer, whether you're a fractional, whether you're a freelance designer, whether you're a dog groomer, the business operations of each one of those people are actually incredibly similar. And one of the most challenging and potentially painful pieces are missing key dates. That's all it is. It's key dates. And I don't know why it's taken so long. I feel like Besolo is the first platform that has a dynamically generated state and federal compliance calendar that then drives a task. Hey, it's time to do this thing. And if you don't do this thing, it's going to hurt.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about the platform, because we've talked around it and some of the things that it offers, but it's not just a place that people show up and say, I want to sign up for benefits, or it's a place I show up and say, it'll tell me how to pay my taxes. Maybe someone who doesn't have familiarity with Besolo, give us the high level. This is what it's about.
Sure. We've tried to mimic what is actually needed to operationally live a business of one lifestyle, a solopreneur lifestyle, a fractional lifestyle. Jeff and I spent a lot of time figuring out what the trifecta, or sometimes I think about it as a three-legged stool of the thing that you need to support a business of one lifestyle. And it's a tax system, an admin and compliance system, and then benefits access. That tends to be a little bit later down the road, but those first two are what people face immediately. And then they get the wheels turning, they feel a little bit more comfortable, and then they're like, man, now I need to build those same benefits access. I need to build retirement. I need to get access to healthcare. So the platform is a reflection of that trifecta. And in our eyes, anything that does not serve all three of those immediately goes into the category of tool for the independent, not a platform. Because if you don't cover all three of those, you now have to figure out where to fill that gap. And that becomes choice paralysis, because there's so many different ways as a solopreneur, as a fractional, as a freelancer, that you could solve the 15 problems you need to solve to put together your operational platform. And a lot of them don't talk together. And the support teams from this platform or from this tool and that tool are definitely not going to talk to each other. And your attorney who is helping you form your business is definitely not going to talk to your CPA. We realized we needed to put all of that in one. And so if we look at Besolo as a reflection of that, it's company formation, the compliance of that company, the tax system, and the kind of the key tax dates. Also for solo LLC members, it's actual tax filing, all of it. For S-Corp members, it's your S-Corp filing. And it's also all the S-Corp support tools. It's an accounting tool. It's the invoicing. It's the time tracking. It's literally, I think we've got like 95% of the most critical operational tools that people need. And then we add the benefits layer.
And accounting, like, for example, a QuickBooks-like solution.
I would say better than QuickBooks for solopreneurs, because tailor-made for solopreneurs. The QuickBooks for a lot of people is like hanging a picture on the wall with a sledgehammer. 1,500 accounts you could choose, and a lot of them look and feel the same. Our platform, the accounting solution, makes accounting, dare I say, slightly fun. It like gamifies it a little bit. So yeah, replacement for a QuickBooks, replacement for a Harvest, for invoicing and time tracking, replacement for Toggle. And then we add included benefits. We include our solo 401k for all members. And then we have access to benefits depending on whether somebody's an LLC or S-Corp member.
And if I recall, Besolo has tools like time tracking, and we could probably dig into a bunch of individual little features. But my experience has been it's pretty chock full of all kinds of nice goodies.
In our eyes, it's the first. If we look at that trifecta of what's needed to successfully live a fractional or freelance or solopreneurial lifestyle, benefits, tax, and admin compliance, it's the first that has all three of those things in one place with a unified support layer. You got a question, you talk to our team across any of those pieces, all of a sudden life gets easier. The biggest reaction I hear and see from people after doing a demo is relief.
I imagine.
It's relief. And I just love that. I love being a part of that story where, like, yes, it can be easier. It can not feel like this, like I'm stuck in the middle. I've got 25 decisions to make. So what most people do is nothing.
Well, the crazy thing is, I'm a marketer in my trade. Todd, he's an amazing podcaster at his core. And we want to be good at those things. And it feels like you have to be an admin expert just to run your own show. And so the thought of having help, someone who's been there and can help fill in those blanks, feels very much like quite a cushion and a safety net, have someone behind you. You mentioned the idea behind a difference between an LLC version and an S-Corp version, just so we don't completely glaze over some of our audience's eyes who are just now starting.
Sure.
First of all, just talk briefly. You mentioned LLC, you mentioned S-Corp. Just introduce someone who is just starting out and saying, what do you mean I need to form a what?
You don't have to form an LLC. We recommend anybody, probably in the fractional space at least, form an LLC. If you're consulting on a business of any value, right, the LLC gives you a little bit of legal protection to separate your business relationship and your personal assets.
It's called a limited liability corporation, I think.
Or company, yeah.
Or company.
In the eyes of the IRS, when you have an LLC, you're still a sole proprietor federally with the IRS, but your clients are going to contract with that limited liability company. And now you have a nice little wall between you and your house, your business operations and your house. I've talked to a few people that, oh, no, it's fine. Just operate as a solopreneur or as a sole proprietor, right? Is the other way some people do it. Some people call that 1099 work, when in reality, sole proprietors and LLCs both get 1099s. It's the same on that side of things. But I've talked to a few people that are fractional CTOs at fintech companies that are operating as a sole proprietor with no insurance and no LLC and have multiple rental properties. I'm not an attorney, but it's just like one of those things that's, if Besolo can just help guide people like, hey, God forbid anything you do goes wrong and you get sued, you're losing all four of those houses, especially if it's a venture-backed tech company, which a lot of these people are working at. It's not whether or not you have a good relationship with the founders. It's whether or not the VCs are going to, if something goes terribly wrong on your decision-making, are going to come after everybody. So that's why we have Solo LLC, which is our baseline recommendation. We don't do kind of sole proprietor support today. We think it's part of the smart recipe. Get an LLC, check that box, have a little legal protection for yourself.
Is it complicated to get an LLC?
No. It has changed a little bit since the new administration has been in. It used to be about 4 days, and now we're forming them in like 5 to 12 days.
Is someone has to bring to that to make it happen?
Just a name. With us, it's just bring the name you want and we'll file it for you as part of the platform. Very straightforward and all-inclusive with Besolo. If you are forming LLCs that had multiple members, multiple owners, those can get more complex, but pretty turnkey in general with a business of one. But it's nice to have that protection.
Okay. On the S-Corp side, and I realize we could get people glazed over about legal terms, all of that. LLCs is clearly the fastest, simplest way to go. And S-Corps exist. Without getting into too much detail, they exist. Why?
LLC, legal protection, great. S-Corp, the way we do S-Corps, the way most people do S-Corps, is an LLC electing S-Corporation with the IRS. Long story short, you can squeak out some pretty nice tax savings. And in our case too, the S-Corp is also how we give our complete benefits package, including healthcare. As a PEO, we need to have a W-2 version of somebody to be able to co-employ under our payroll. And S-Corp people actually do run a payroll for themselves to protect against some taxes. What's probably more important to talk about, though, is like which is right for me when. I would say in general, LLC is great for people all along their journeys from formation to, we've had people that are 5 or 6 years deep in LLCs too. You don't have to level up to S-Corp. LLCs are really good if you like flexibility and lower overhead. If you get to a point where you know for the next 2 to 3 years, it's going to be about grinding, making 100K or plus or more, and that's really easy for you to do, and you just want to focus on tax savings, then S-Corp is really good because there is a little bit of a burden to run that payroll for yourself. So LLC, simple, fast, flexibility. S-Corp, a little less flexibility, a little bit more burden, but 3 to 6% tax savings.
And your platform helps take away some of that uncertainty of running a S-Corp?
Yes. And this is why we were so excited to launch the LLC product, was because now people can start as an LLC, get used to our tools, because all of our tools are the same as an LLC as they are for S-Corp. We just add a payroll element and a benefits element. People can start as an LLC, and then our team can guide them if and when it is right to level up to S-Corp. We have no bias. We're not going to force people to be S-Corp that it's not a good fit. I love that we have both options, because to a lot of potential partners or providers, what's the saying is, to a hammer, everything looks like nails. If all you have is S-Corp to sell, you're going to sell S-Corp regardless of whether it's the best fit for the solopreneur.
And Mark, you've been doing this how long?
I would like to say this is a culmination of my entire life. But Besolo officially, we started the company in the end of January 2024, somewhere in there. So December 23, January 24. And then soft launched the platform in June of 24 and then did our first fundraise in September 1st of 24.
So is it safe to assume you've had a few nibbles or bites on your participating in your platform?
We got a great group of members now. It's so needed. It's nice to meet people and be like, your life is going to be easier. And they're like, yes.
Hey, I know you're a busy man. I know you're out there preaching the gospel, if you will, to the people. Are there some individual stories of people you've spoken to who have had this experience with Besolo? And it's always nicer to hear the ground level, what that looks like, as opposed to just merely the theory. Do you have any personal stories of people who have used Besolo and have told you about the difference it's made in their business?
Yes, we've got a whole variety of types of people. A lot of them are fractionals right now. I can think of one person that was operating as an LLC for probably 2 or 3 years longer than they should have. They were probably S-Corp eligible for 2 to 3 years, but just looked at that undertaking and was like, no way. And found Besolo. We leveled them up to S-Corp. Now they're saving 3 to 6% in taxes. And then they're also in their state, they didn't have access to great healthcare. And so they also got healthcare out of the deal and are using our national PPO healthcare plan too. So it's like a super easy win for them. Besolo is not just paying for itself, but it's actually paying returns because our healthcare plan was actually cheaper than the healthcare plan they're paying for on the marketplace too, which is wild.
That's crazy. I would imagine there are lots of people who are very happy that this option out there exists.
Quick question. I want to address the LLC to S-Corp you mentioned a couple of times. Do you advise people, is this annual revenue based? And is there a number you generally ask people to kind of hit before they start to explore the S-Corp?
We look at it as a trifecta, a 3-part qualification. So revenue threshold. In our scenario, because we're a benefits provider through that PEO piece, we recommend 80 to 100K minimum. Some other companies will start talking to you around like 60 to 70. I don't know how the math works for them as far as the return. Because we also want to make sure that if people become an S-Corp, that they're also getting money back after all the fees of running an S-Corp. Like to me, that's part of the critical math. So revenue threshold, we typically lay 80 as a bare minimum, but with clear line of sight to 100K. Revenue consistency makes everybody's life a lot easier. So if you are consistently each month averaging around that 9-10K range, that will make that payroll that you're running for yourself a lot simpler to administer because money literally has to get pulled out of your business bank account and then move over to your personal bank. As convoluted as it sounds, you're literally paying yourself. That revenue consistency helps a lot with making that payroll a lot more palatable and easy to operate. And then the third part is a qualitative qualification. Is this lifestyle for you about flexibility and freedom purely? Number answer on this one is like, are you the type of person that wants to maximize tax savings and is willing to have a little bit more burden on their plate? Well, then yeah, S-Corp makes sense. Are you the type of person that wants to be able to just forget about their business for 3 or 4 months out of the year and go to Bali and that's your routine? Well, then maybe not as great of a fit for you because you have to figure out, we help everybody, but it's a collaborative thing. We can't truly drive the vehicle for everybody. We are co-pilots. That's our 3-part qualification for S-Corp.
You mentioned you've got the 2 platforms and you said on the S-Corp version of the product, that comes with the more access to benefits. And by the way, we keep talking about benefits like it's only healthcare, but I'm quite sure there are some other benefits under the package, right?
Yeah. With the Besolo LLC product, which we call Solo LLC, we've split it out to those are the core features of the platform that are available for both LLC members and S-Corp members. Core features of the platform from a benefits perspective include solo 401k, which for both parties is a really good tax shielding mechanism and retirement building mechanism. Obviously, it's a 401k. One of the craziest stats to me digging into this space was that only 13% of all independents have any type of tax advantageous formal retirement plan being used. 13%. That's scary from a lot of different reasons, but at a bare minimum, it means that's a really high risk to churning back to W-2 because of that reason, because somebody doesn't know how to turn that toggle switch on. It's like, I need to start building retirement. I'm just going to go back to W-2. That's the thing that we want to try to prevent is, I don't know how to do this. I don't want to do this. Nobody's making the roadmap for me. I'm just going to go back to W-2.
We already know health benefits, retirement benefits. Anything else people should be aware of that are available on both platforms?
Yeah. So for LLC, 401k, pet insurance, and dental vision are available. And I know pet insurance sounds crazy, but it's actually really good. It's like super big savings because it's an employer style pet insurance plan, not like a private one. So all those available for both LLC and S-Corp members. If you become an S-Corp member, now you can actually unlock national PPO health insurance. It's called national PPO healthcare because like we're an employer. And we have life insurance, hospital indemnity, accident, critical illness, identity theft protection. It's the full style of benefits guide that you would get from a W-2 employer. And they're all optional, voluntary, electable. And with the S-Corp folks, the vast majority of those will just pull right out of that payroll, what you're running for yourself as the S-Corp, which is really nice. So it's kind of set it and forget it. That's another benefit of us having control of our own payroll engine too.
My wife should get that too.
Yeah, it's all employee plus family, employee plus child, employee plus spouse. And there's different price points for each of those.
How are the rates? My instincts tell me it's just only going to get better as the group gets bigger. That's just the nature of insurance. But how have you found your ability to reduce healthcare rates in this new world?
The first big win is that in many states, national PPO, even regional PPO healthcare is just not available on the marketplaces. Colorado is one that's near and dear to our heart. That's where all of our full-time team members are. And it doesn't matter how much you want to pay. You could not get ACA compliant major medical PPO healthcare in Colorado. It's not a thing. In that scenario, we are infinitely better because people can actually get a PPO healthcare plan there. And then once you start looking at all the other states, it varies because the ACA plans, a lot of them can scale depending on age or income. So I've talked to some younger people where like we're not competitive at all. And then we've got a couple of people that are a little bit later in their life where we're saving them $1,000 a month. So I can't give you one clear answer because it really varies depending on person to person or state to state. But I think the clearest win is we can get access to PPO healthcare in some of the states that it's not even available. It doesn't exist anymore.
I agree. Options. That's all we're asking for, more than what we're just being given. So I would assume, seeing how you founded the business, as this freelance economy continues to grow, I would expect maybe you see a trend here in the world of more fractionals and more solopreneurs.
The data doesn't lie, that's for sure. It's looking like people are choosing independent or going independent and going fractional. And I am definitely a believer of life's too short. As you guys know, having somebody close to you, like my wife, like your family member, Andrew, go through something really hard medically does make you realize I really do want to design my own life. And that's still the case for me here at Besolo, right? This is still part of that. We got to make the actual engine that lets everybody do that. To us, it's always been kind of the final frontier of the American dream is be truly independent.
Absolutely. The meat of our program, I feel like that wraps it up nicely. But now we're done with the meat. We're moving on to the dessert course, which is our ever famous lightning round with questionably fractional questions.
Okay.
So, Mark, I don't know if you're ready, if you want to imagine some suspenseful game show music, but if you're ready, I'm going to start firing some lightning round questions at you. Number one, tell our audience, what is your one favorite piece of software, app, or technology, something you use all the time and can't live without, and it can't be Besolo?
That was the easy answer. Come on, man. I'm tied between a career marketer. I actually love HubSpot. I love what it can do on the power of marketing automation and keeping in touch with lots of people in meaningful ways. But my other favorite one is actually SEMrush, which is like a search engine marketing platform. And it's not just for making content. It's to see how people are inquiring about problems on search engines. Because you can go and see what the volume is based off of a term that is searched. I think that's just so fascinating to see how people are asking questions to search engines.
Next up, what's your most influential business book that you've read?
I will tell you the one that's made the most impact on me recently, because it's so tied to what we need to do at Besolo, is StoryBrand. Building a story brand. He does a really good job of breaking down how to make that story of your company, especially because we all have it in our hearts and we just want to make sure that we're translating it to everybody properly.
I hear a lot about StoryBrand. I read it myself. All right. Next up, tell us, what was your all-time favorite vacation or place to visit?
Oh man, that's an easy one for me. My wife and I just absolutely love Santa Fe. We got married in Santa Fe, loved the general vibe of New Mexico. And if anybody knows what Meow Wolf is, we actually had our wedding reception at Meow Wolf.
Oh my gosh.
Because it turns out Meow Wolf is cheaper to rent on a weekday than most wedding venues.
You're kidding me.
Swear to God.
If you've been there, you know, but Meow Wolf is insane.
Take over the whole thing.
And the one in Santa Fe is the most insane of all. I've been to others. Can't even explain it. It is an experience.
It is half the price of most wedding venues to rent Meow Wolf on Thursday.
That is good to know. If I ever need to get remarried, I'll know where to go. All right, next up. If you, Mark Jackson, could go back in time, what profession would you have loved to attempt, whether you were successful at it or not?
Professional dirt bike racer. I actually race dirt bikes right now. I was 2 spots away from getting forced to professional this season. And I was like, man, if I'd started this when I wasn't so old and creaky, I probably could have had a good run at this.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. Oh man, talk about living the dream. All right, this is an easy one in that it's so stinking deep.
Okay.
What is the best piece of advice you have ever received? Or, failing that, the most important lesson you've learned in your life?
My grandfather, who was actually CEO of Duracell and Cheeseboro Ponds and president of Tupperware. And as a kid, I never used to understand what this meant, but he just said, just keep showing up. Just keep showing up. As a kid, you're like, what do you mean? Just like arrive at the office. And now as you get older, you realize what that means is show up with the intention to do good, show up with the intention to do things well. And if you just keep having that, eventually you'll get to someplace pretty exciting. And
finally, most importantly, where can people learn more about you and Besolo?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is actually, we just built a whole new one with Solo LLC. So it's actually really good. Besolo.io. And then you can find me on LinkedIn as Mark William Jackson, which is my grandfather's name. And that will help because there's a lot of Mark Jacksons out there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like do people ask you if you played for the Knicks and and how you like playing for the Maryland Terrapins?
That's right. And I'm like a dirt bike snowboard person, so I'm like, yeah, I don't know what that means, but awesome. Yeah.
Well, cool. That's amazing. And if anyone's it's Besolo.io. Just like it sounds.
That's right.
Besolo.
We are Besolo, not Be Small Business. We are strictly for businesses of one and solopreneurs. Besolo.
Fantastic. Well, this has been amazing, Mark. Todd, I don't know if you've got any other questions for him before I sign us off, but this has been wonderful.
Yeah, no questions. I just love that analogy about being in the city of the W-2 and then stepping out of the walls and now you're in the jungle. And it just sounds like this great sense of, okay, I have an ally. There's a great platform there. I don't have to be alone. And there's some structure and there's some direction that exists there for me. And so it's been great learning about the tool and really excited to look into it. So thanks for your time, Mark. It was just a really great, full of information, great explanations, and some really good encouragement for fractionals along the way as well that you offered. So really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you, sir. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of another edition of Holy Fractional. I want to thank our guest, Mark Jackson, for appearing on the show today. And I also want to thank the world's best co-host and my partner in part-time, Todd Hines, for making this journey with me. And to you, our listeners, I want to thank you as well for joining us. Until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, stay fractional.